Yeah, yes. It is Thursday. It is 9. It's UK Cowboys time. But, guys, how do we feel? Not about the loss. We'll get to that in a moment. How do we feel about there finally being a fan rant show for everybody?
Meh.
Yeah, ideally it should have been a couple of weeks further down the line. But...
Very true. Very true. Yeah. We usually do the fan rant show once the season's finished. Marks the end of the season and the beginning for everybody to do the big exhale. Get everything off your shoulders. You guys at home, the MVPs of this show. It's in the description. You control the show. You control what we talk about, what we say. There is literally no prep for this show. So we are about to ramble for a little bit while the questions and the comments come in. Whatever it is you want to talk about, discuss, anything at all. Could be Cowboys or non-Cowboys related. We've had some non-Cowboys related questions in here before, which are a little bit on the weird side. But, bring them all in. Now, the guys did the post-game show on Tuesday. That could be those are the tough shows. That is for sure. But let me hit you with it, and we'll start with everyone at home, guys. Just because usually I start the show with the thoughts and feelings, so I'll start off straight away, guys. How do you feel about this now being the official Cowboys off season? Let's go around the horn.
Depressed, actually. I mean, obviously, this was an absolute shocker at the weekend. It's the only thing to take from it is that this has come as a shock. If you liken it to being on an airplane, would you rather be in the Eagles situation where you know you're going to crash, you know you're probably going to die, and you've got six or 7 weeks to get used to that idea, or would you rather it just instantaneously? Obviously, you'd much rather go out like that as opposed to being the Eagles. But it's still a shocker. We expected everything to get set up. No other team has, in this new format, has ever hosted a game and lost. As the number 2 seed, we're the only one that was hosting the game this weekend that lost. And the Packers took it to us. The defense, I was sitting in the pub. I'd arranged to meet one of the Packers fans from another podcast that I listen to, and I'm a Patreon group with. And we were sitting in the pub, and as soon as Deron Bland got flagged on that first drive, and it looked like we'd cleared, the defense had got the offense off the field. Thought, this is bad news, and it got worse and worse. I left at 27-0. By the time I'd walked home, obviously we'd started to come back, but I mean we were never in that game. And it's almost a carbon copy of the last time that we played the Packers in the playoffs, where Dak, well, yeah, but still. The Packers went out. The Packers went out to a lead. Dak brought them back, and if there'd been another quarter to play, maybe we would have had a chance in this game. I don't know, but the defense was uncharacteristic. Whether it's if you put credence into what Isaiah Sandback said about the whole Stephon Gilmore not being able to play man coverage and press coverage because of his shoulder. But to suddenly go to something like 75% zone defense, and not trust the fact that Nashawn Wright could probably do a better job in man defense, it's a bit concerning from that side of things.
Paul?
Where do I begin?
Wherever you like. It's a fan rant.
More after rewatching the game, what went wrong, stuff like that. There was a few plays where McCarthy did get a lot wrong. Like,
agree, yeah.
Where he could have run post routes, he could have ran slants where the middle of the field was wide open. Why was that not picked up? but defensively, I'm absolutely fuming with Dan Quinn. Absolutely fuming with him. Maybe it's just me, but I kind of felt as though he threw away that game away. He really did. And with the knock-on effect of Dan Quinn, it put pressure on our offense to
Yeah.
overcompensate, and that's what led to mistakes. And yeah, the way I'm seeing it right now, Dan Quinn's already got his feet out the building right now, and I'm already, as of right now, I'm looking at who could potentially be replacements. I have guys I wouldn't mind seeing in Dallas, but it's not names that it's been mentioned in the media. So I'd rather have someone else in. It's not a Stephen Jones person. It's one of their guys. I don't want that. I would want someone that's coming in with a whole new, fresh perspective. Is going to bring a little bit of attitude towards this defense and not to slack off and actually drill them when they make mistakes and tell players to start getting off podcasts and making all this talk and actually make action speak louder than words. And I'm saying that to you, Micah Parsons, in particular.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, I said that on another show this week. I said that very thing. That the social media thing should take a side swipe while you concentrate on other things.
If you're a professional athlete, you actually are seeing that with Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey right now. Since they started doing new heights, don't get me wrong, they're still great players, but you are seeing a dip in their production, and it's like you could say, "Oh, it's Taylor Swift as well." Yeah, that's another distraction.
And I'm not saying right that these guys aren't human beings, that they should have other passions and they should have other hobbies outside of what they do. But that's the same as us. But like, if say we had a hobby and it was affecting your work, your boss would be like, "Guy, listen, slow it down."
Absolutely, because let's look at history, right? And before I finish off, I'll let Rich jump in about his 2 cents. But let's think about it, right? Jalen Smith had his sunglasses company, right? That took a knock-on effect in his performances, right?
Yeah.
You try to think of all the other players that had little side businesses and stuff like that, or side hustles and that. Boss Man Fat wanted to be a rapper. Look what happened. All right. Then you saw, like, in the final year, Cole Beasley, his production went right down. Like, he was on, like, don't give her a bit. When he went to Buffalo, it took a halt on his rap and just to be focused back in football. And look what he did in Buffalo. He actually had his best years in Buffalo than he did in the whole of Dallas. So I think it's when you're trying to do stuff on the side, it's going to knock on your main income massively.
Yeah.
So if you're trying to do a wee podcast side there and there, fair play, but don't expect teams to make you be the superstar. Like, I think teams should be more on a stricter stance when it comes to that, because end of the day, that is your day job. If stuff on the side are actually affecting your day job, then get the hell out.
I agree.
I think the other thing as well, just before Rich jumps in, is the releasing of the All-Pro teams, the Pro Bowl teams, all that sort of stuff is done too early. I mean, you could have, the Cowboys could have looked at that and said, right, we've got 9 All-Pro players over 2 teams. Packers had absolutely nobody. We should win this. And, all last week, I mean, all 7, there was 7 predictors on the Fox podcast or whatever, and they all said, that the Cowboys should win this easily and all that sort of stuff. And I think, players buy into that and then actually forget that, you actually need to go and play this game. There's a professional pride that the Packers have as well. And yeah, they're young and all this sort of stuff. But that, that's the only difference, is that they're still hungry for the victory as well.
Yeah. Rich? And then we're going to get into, as soon as you give yours, we got quite a few rants to get into.
Yeah. I'm going to be very quick with it. The past couple of years, I went back and I looked at who we've played, specifically who we've lost to in the playoffs since '95. And there's a bit of a mix for the first sort of 2 decades. But the past couple of years now, there's a definite pattern here. So you got the loss against Green Bay, San Francisco. So that's the last 3 years. Prior to that, you got the Rams. Prior to that, it's Green Bay. Prior to that, it's Green Bay.
Yeah.
Is anyone noticing the pattern?
The majority of all these coaches are actually under the same lineage. It's all teams that Dan Quinn has actually played and lost to as the Atlanta Falcons.
Yep.
That's your link.
There's a couple of things there, one of which is that. The other thing is the Cowboys have lost to these teams. Different teams, don't forget. They have the same name. But bear in mind, they are different teams. They are different head coaches. They are different players. They are different coordinators. They are different position coaches. And on the Cowboys side as well, there are games there that have been lost under Mike McCarthy and games there that have been lost under Jason Garrett. And all the myriad different instances of staff and players. The only thing you can really come to after looking at that is saying, with all those different variables, there is some sort of mental block or mental issue that Dallas inherently has. Outside of, and it doesn't seem to matter who you bring in the building. It doesn't matter who the head coach is. It doesn't matter who the players are. Doesn't matter who the coordinators are. Doesn't matter who your position coaches are. That still seems to be the case. So how do you change that? How does changing and getting another head coach in here change that? How does changing the offensive or defensive coordinator or all of it change it? Change the whole roster, change all the coaching staff, change absolutely everything from Will McClay down effectively. Does anything change? Because history shows you no, it doesn't.
Yeah.
I believe it ties into, in large part, along what Paul was saying, there are too many distractions. It's strange how the Dallas Cowboys specifically, a team who is used to being so in the spotlight, used to being playing so often under those bright lights, is the team that withers under those lights the most. It doesn't make sense.
I say it does. We talking about this with RJR a couple of nights ago, and he said, "What is the common problem, the common denominator?" And some people will say daft things like, "Oh, Jerry," and all the rest of it. And I disagree with that completely. Yeah, okay, he's been there during the problems, but he's not the problem because Jerry isn't out there calling plays. He's not on the field making plays. All he's doing is he's going out there, grabbing the guys he thinks is best for the job. In terms of coaching, like, say, Mike McCarthy, he didn't even make that choice. It was Stephen Jones. So he just puts the people in the right place, in the right position to go and succeed. The biggest problem is, and there's two parts to this, is it's pressure. And it's something that is built up before Dak Prescott and before Mike McCarthy's time. And this is what I truly believe, is that there is now something that's snowballed, and it's snowballed to become this giant King Kong-sized monkey that's on everybody's back in the Dallas Cowboys. And it's in some ways it's two parts. In the first part, they seemingly do well in the regular season and fail in the playoffs because the pressure builds up so much that, we're back in the playoffs, and it falls apart because they have that giant monkey over their shoulder. The other part of it is what I like to call the Cowboys Bowl, which is whichever team we play against, they know two things. They are going to be it's going to be the most watched game that week. So if they perform, millions of people, more people who are watching this game, which happened in the wildcard game, 43 million people tuned into the wildcard game against Cowboys in Green Bay. Only 20 tuned into the Kansas game, right? Who's a Super Bowl. They're like Super Bowl bound more than the Cowboys were. But more people watched that. So the opposition wants to play more, so because they know that they're going to be watched more. Also, they are the most scrutinized team in the media. So if say Green Bay beat the Dallas Cowboys like they did, they know that it's going to be all over the media. They're going to be talked about more. That's the Cowboys Bowl. That's why the opposition brings their A game against the Cowboys. And it's something that has just built up over time. And like I say, before Mike McCarthy and Dak's time, which it kind of makes it unfair on these guys because they're now at this end, the tail end of the problem of Cowboys can't win in the playoffs. Look, it's been X amount of years. Yeah, before these guys' time. And okay, they're still in this mix. But it's because this monkey has been building up and building up and building up. And that's where we are now. I was saying this to Lauren. What it will take is for the Cowboys to make it to the playoffs. Getting a first round bye doesn't help them at all. But you get to them to a wild card game, and what's going to happen is they're going to win a wild card game. And then that gives them a little booster. They go into a divisional game, and they win that game and make it to the NFC Championship. I guarantee you that when that happens, the snowball effect goes the other way. Because now they've shaken that monkey off, and the pressure's off them. It goes the opposite way. It sounds weird, but that's how it would work with them. And I think that's the true problem right now, is that it's not Jerry's fault. It's not the coach's fault. It's not the play. It's the monkey.
In some way, I agree, but I disagree with you, Mike, because what's the one thing we don't actually have? We don't have a general manager on the field along with the head coach just to analyze our personnel of staff in terms of the players.
Will McClay is what I would say.
In need. Jerry's not on the field looking at his players saying, we are looking a bit thin at linebacker. We should get a linebacker in. We're looking a bit thin at offensive line. We didn't bring an offensive lineman in. We don't have someone to actually oversee while Mike McCarthy's coaching to look at the players that we've got while things are going on. Jerry is dubbed as a general manager. He's far from that. He's not. As much as I like Jerry Jones and stuff like that, but we do need an actual general manager to help assist the coaches a lot more hands-on. We're not getting that right now.
But is Will McClay not doing that? Because that's what Will McClay is at practice every day. Will McClay is watching this. He's the one that then goes out. The only way Jerry actually gets involved is when the contract negotiations are going on, and it's him and Stephen sitting there working things out. It is still Will going out and trying to find, but obviously we try, because we pay all of our guys, and there is an element of we like our guys is a bad approach to this. But because we like our guys and we pay our guys, and invariably we pay them at the last possible second, so they have superstar seasons and then go, right, okay, the free agent market's saying that I'm worth 80 million. You've got to pay me 80 million, or pay me 79 million to stay. They get 79 million and then they tail off a little bit. There is that. But then that doesn't leave you a lot for the remainder of the season. And especially, it's not, the difference between the Tom Landry era, the Jimmy Johnson era, is free agency and the salary cap. And you can't just go out and, write blank checks left, right, and centre and bring guys in, build the team up over 3 or 4 seasons. And what you've got to remember is, would you rather have a Jason Garrett type team where you're up one year, down the next year, you're middling, or would you rather go to the playoffs every single year, which we have done under Mike McCarthy?
That's it. Yeah.
Fair enough. We've crashed out in fairly great style the last couple of years. You could say that, San Francisco handed it to us 2 years ago. Last year was a bit closer, albeit, as soon as Tony Pollard went down, all hopes went with it.
Yeah.
But, the more you're in the playoffs, the more experience you're getting, the better you're going to get. But you're turning over the teams 20%, 25% a year, where Landry, because there wasn't free agency, Landry was building players and players, building their experience until they were on the field and ready to hit the ground running. They still had 8, 9, 10 years where they got to the playoffs. There was, unscheduled knockouts. They lost to Green Bay twice. They lost to Cleveland in the old division style before Cleveland moved across to the AFC. Lost to Baltimore as well again before they moved to the AFC. And you had problems there. Jimmy had guys coming in left, right, and centre. You can't do that nowadays. I think you just need to build on this each year, and at some point the dam's going to break. And now, yeah, that's what Jerry's now having the problem with is getting the fans to buy in next year by saying, "Oh well, we're going with the same people," all this sort of stuff. But there is going to have to be some sort of turnover, I think, again this year. I think there needs to be a few changes within some of the position coaches. Obviously, we've seen the offensive line take a fall down this year. What I'd like to do is maybe bring in an offensive line coach. If we can pinch, if not from San Francisco, try and pinch somebody who is a former San Francisco, or either Mike Shanahan or Kyle Shanahan tree, so that you've got the understanding, because Mike Shanahan started the whole thing with getting free agent running backs to run for 1,000 yards. And it was mostly because of the offensive line blocking more than anything else. We had two Pro Bowlers in that offensive line, three All Pros on that offensive line, and yet we were only something like, what was it, the fifth best in the NFC for rushing this year. And 10th out of all playoff teams. That made our offense one-sided. The offense isn't capable of, again, it's designed to get a lead straight away. If you're trying to catch up, it's not designed for that.
Which is weird to say, when people say that, when Dak has the most passing touchdowns for the year.
Yeah.
It's very odd why that happens. But all right, here we go, right, guys. Let's get into some of these guys' fan rants. And I'm going to start from the top and work my way down. And you just give me your guys' takes, because they are the MVPs of UK Cowboys is controlling today's show. So here's one from Volante. I would sign Derrick Henry. I say no. Move Micah Parsons to run stopping off-ball linebacker. No. Draft another lineman to replace Tyrant. Now you're talking. And get another linebacker in the draft. Now, those last two I agree with. What's your guys' takes on this rant?
I would get an defensive end and put Parsons back at linebacker. You have a way about it, but everything else I totally agree with. Like, I would bring a guy like Derrick Henry. We can't afford Derrick. We can't afford Derrick Henry.
And I think Derrick Henry's on the downside of his.
Definitely.
Yeah, but I still don't think we can afford. I still don't think we can afford him. When you think about it, you've got Dak's contract right now, which is $60 million against the cap. He's going to get extended. Then you need to figure out what's going to happen with Parsons, what's going to happen with such and such. So, I don't see Henry happening as much as I would love that to happen. But I'm pretty sure there's going to be a big sturdy running back somewhere in this draft that can be that power back run it by this running back by committee. Because let's be honest, Tony Pollard is pretty much out the door, I think, despite being an 1,000-yard rusher. To me, he's not justified the price tag, if I'm being perfectly honest. So we will need to stack up on running back at some point in this draft.
Yeah, I mean, 1,000-yard rusher has now been watered down by the fact that we've got 17 games. You only have to get something like 68 yards a game, and you're 1,000-yard rusher. From that point of view, but obviously we haven't seen splash plays from the ground game that we had in previous years. And then that just forces it that you've got to try and hit your wide receivers, try and get the big plays out of them, and then that puts pressure on Dak. And in big games like this, teams know that, and they just again it seems to be the same sort of thing that they drop off in coverage, they don't necessarily get the pressure in, it's clogging cover. And whether it's a sort of mental block for Dak, I don't know, but there's something that Dak's having difficulty about these similar styles of defense. Now the one positive for Dak is that look at the great Peyton Manning that everybody talks about. His first final breakthrough to get into the Super Bowl was not until year 9. Now, admittedly, he was going up against Tom Brady in the NFC Championship game year in, year out. But still, he had MVP years and he was failing in the playoffs and not getting to the Super Bowl. So there is an element of that Dak is still at least getting to the playoffs and getting the experience there. He's still just, and it can just be something, a little bit of luck and going our way, and then the dam breaks.
I tell you, and a big reason why I think it does. When I say about the pressure, you just look at even in the regular season where the Cowboys were the favorites to win, where they were not the underdogs. They lost, like Arizona. It's because the pressure it's when the pressure is on them the most. And that's a good example. When they're the underdog, they come out with their backs up against the wall and they're like an angry wasp coming out to just go out and they do. And they're the weird games because you're like, oh God, they're not the favorites and they're playing on the road yet. And all of a sudden they'll go out there and the game will be over at half time. And you just like,
if that's the case, then we should have lost to New York.
No,
should have won against Bills. Should have won against Miami.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They rode rich. So that kind of defeats that. Sorry, Mike, but it kind of defeats that argument.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just making a point of the fact that they struggle when they're under pressure, which is why they struggle when they get to the playoffs.
This is the weird thing, though, and this has always been the thing for me with Dak, has been his very first year. He went toe-to-toe with Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs and came that close. He wasn't fazed one bit. There was no semblance of being affected by how big that game was, how big it was for Dallas, how big it was for him. None of it. Didn't matter at all. The only thing that happened was wide receivers let him down. That was it. But what got them there was a strong offensive line and a strong run game. That's what got them there. I've said since then, Dak is one of those people, and he's shown a propensity to be less of that this year, but also at the same time has proved you right. He's one of those quarterbacks that needs a certain level of support, and he hasn't been getting it. Simple as. But he's still been making the playoffs, helping his team make the playoffs year on year.
Here we go. Here's one for Paulus coming in. Beef up the O-line. That'll sort the running game out. Yeah.
They'll sort everything out. This is the other thing. I can still see in my head going back. I can't remember exactly what game it was, but it was towards the end of the season. I think they were about to or just about to wrap up the 1 seed, and they were just so ridiculously dominant. They ran through everyone that season. Their red zone conversion rate was ridiculous. And I remember watching the game, and they had a clock on there from when the ball was snapped and how long Dak had to throw the ball. And it was like 9 seconds. Like, if you have 9 seconds, someone is going to work open. They just could not get to him. It was an absolute wall. You're going to have success when you do that. That's why their rate, one of the reasons why their conversion rate was so high. That's one of the reasons why Dak was so good as a rookie. But it's been left to deteriorate since then. And it's part of the reason why we're in this situation. It's not been addressed properly.
In fairness to your argument there, Rich, and I totally agree with you, like even that game just there, the wide receivers have much to blame in that first half in particular.
CD Lamb.
In particular, CD Lamb.
Mm-hmm. Like, something was off there.
Oh, I don't know what it is.
No.
Can't understand why he would be off, because he was on the all-time high. His confidence should have been sky high. He should have been absolutely out there to be in dog mentality. He should have been absolutely stoned, but he was getting caught out. Like, and there
physical. His body language as well, Paul.
Yes. His body language was off after the first series. You see him going off. Dak's joining at him. Makes a couple of drops. Okay, fine. Any other game, fine. It's happened. It's not been his night. He's not worked into it yet. Okay, we'll go somewhere else. We'll do something else. Never seen that before. I've never seen Mike McCarthy over talking to him when his head's down between his knees, more or less. And he's going out the next series, making more drops. You can see it looks, and I'm not saying it looked like he was half-arsing it. Like he wasn't maximum effort. And after it, he's just like, just so frustrated. And the body language, like you said, Mike, was just completely off the entire time. There was 3 people, technically a few more, but 3 skill players who played well that night out of the entire team.
One of them was Michael Gallup.
I was just about to say that. Michael Gallup showed up. He showed up when he really needed to, and Dak threw it to him. He pretty much nearly made 100% of his catches, I believe.
He did. He was 6 for 6.
Michael Gallup, Ferguson, Tony Pollard slashed the O-line because for a few plays, they got it going. 11-yard run, first down.
Yeah.
Next one, 10-yard run, first down. 7-yard run. We haven't seen that for a while, and that's what you should have been having the entire night, because on paper, this is where they got drawn away from. On paper, this is a terrible run defense. Terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Fifth worst in the league.
Yep.
Cowboys are bang, just better than bang average at 17.
And the Packers' third down defense against the run was one of the worst in the league. They could have just kept running at them.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But then
and watch the 49ers. The 49ers will do that.
49ers will do that, and they should annihilate them.
Yeah.
But even looking at other games, you look at the week before, Washington went out, got a touchdown on us, and went, this is going to go one of 2 ways. If they answer it straight away, okay, we're in the game, they can pull away, and that's exactly what happened. Or they're going to get behind, like what happened in Green Bay. That's the trigger there, and I can't understand how and why it happened, really. Like you said, the body language, everyone was off. It was like a trap game mentality. It was just ridiculous. Like, you can understand maybe not being as prepared strangely enough, for the running game to a degree.
I'm so glad.
Everything else, no. And the amount that the ball was getting thrown at you, no. Everything else was just
the run
off.
defense was on play calling. Poor play calling.
Oh, that was just
Rich. Rich, I'm so glad that you mentioned unprepared. If there's one thing that really, really annoyed me with Mike McCarthy's comments, he says like we didn't prepare enough. Pretty much.
It's the playoffs,
and that's inexcusable. You're in the playoffs. You know the trope you have that you've earned as a team, whether you like it or not. You can stand up there and say, "This doesn't affect us. This is everything in history." Bollocks.
Just to add to that, though,
the latest iteration of this team. You carry that baggage. If teams can stand up there, your players can stand up there and say, "We are carrying the torch. We know what's expected of us." 1 minute from those 5 wins all those years ago, you bet you can carry all the losses that have come in the postseason as well. And you better prepare properly, because you are supposed to know, after having gone to the Super Bowl as a coach, that you have to prepare properly. It's inexcusable.
Just to add to that, Mike McCarthy's had plenty of experience against these type of players, LaFleur, Shanahan, etc., all under that same tree. He's experienced that, and Dan Quinn, I may add, in particular, Dan Quinn, who's had plenty of experience trying to figure out this Rubik's Cube of this type of offense he should be dealing with, and still haven't solved it for over these amount of years, seasons, games, etc., and still can't do it. I'm sorry, but it's just not good enough.
Agree. Like, I mean, we got a question here, and we'll go through it in a moment. A few things about who takes over as defensive coordinator. Could actually still be Dan Quinn from the comments.
I'm sorry, but I don't want him.
So one of the statements I've made is Dan Quinn, what we're seeing with the Cowboys with the regular season, the postseason, is actually it's actually something that has happened quite often in Dan Quinn's career. That, you know, I mean, his defenses in the playoff fall off. I mean, look at the best example is the Falcons versus the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
But he was the head coach, not the DC.
But you know what I mean? Of him coaching in the playoffs. I know there was the whole Seattle run and what have you, but there's a history that has happened with him where he struggled. And I mean, it's just a crazy place to be. And I think what Dan Quinn was hoping on was that when you look at the defense, the Cowboys defense, in the last sort of 3 weeks, it wasn't getting much pressure, it wasn't getting much sacks, and it wasn't getting many turnovers. And the reason I think the run defense failed is because he was in dime for 48 of the 54 off plays from the Packers. So you are going to run on that. And that's why Aaron Jones had 5.6 yards per carry and 3 touchdowns, because he had 6 safeties on the field. But I think what Dan Quinn was hoping for, what the idea was to drop 6, and hopefully he will see Jordan Love throwing a ball and a pick 6 or an interception is going to go the other way, and that swings the momentum. And I think that's why, as well, Dan Quinn kept holding on throughout the entire game, playing 6 safeties or more. Sometimes it was 7 that he was playing on the field. And that's what he was doing, is he was hoping to drop back, drop into deep zone, and try and return the ball the other way off an interception. And that would be what would swing the momentum.
You would think, Mike, he would have learned his lesson by now against these type of tree of offenses over the course of the years. It does not simply work. It doesn't.
Motion again, Paul. Me and you spoke about it. He struggles against teams that use motion.
Like, it's... I know a few people say, yeah, we need to keep Dan Quinn, etc., but I'm sorry, but if Dan Quinn was to go, and if Micah Parsons is actually true to his word and says, I'll go where DQ goes, off you go, mate. Off you go. Give us a lot of draft picks. Save us a whole load of salary cap issues. On you go. Because frankly, the attitude is freaking stinking.
No, I don't want Barkley from the Giants.
No.
No.
Not a power back.
Too many injuries.
And at the moment, I see Joe saying there, haven't you heard that Dan Quinn's saying in Dallas? The reports at the moment is that he likely comes back if he doesn't get offered the job. I think if he gets offered the job this year, you only have to look at Kellen Moore and how his stock's gone down by going off to Los Angeles Chargers. I always do that. I don't know why. But you know, Dan Quinn must be saying right now that, you know, if he's got any hope of getting a head coaching job, this is the year to do it before another year of this sort of situation happens again, where, you know, the 49ers tear into us or something like that. So this is a year he has to go away. If not, he needs to come back and again retool this defense. You know, this is a different defense to the Legion of Boom that we saw at Seattle. You know, and there is an element. Micah's saying that he wants to be a defensive end because the money. You know, it's like Shaq Barrett. You know, when he petitioned the league that he was a defensive end, not a linebacker, and he wanted to be paid as a defensive end. That's the whole reason
Kyle Pitts.
That's the whole reason why Micah doesn't want to be an off-the-ball linebacker. And Micah Parsons probably would be game-changing as an off-the-ball linebacker for this defense as well. But he prefers to be that in-your-face guy, get the pressures, complain about the fact that he's not getting holding penalties. You know, but it's you know, if Dan Quinn comes back, you know, there still needs to be questions about this defense. And
Definitely.
To me, if there's a simple fix to fix Dan Quinn's defense, is stick to what you're best at. Don't change your game plan to suit their offense. Don't put 6 safeties in. Stick to what has actually been working for you for the whole season and stick with it. Don't change from man coverage to zone coverage just because. That, to me, is still annoys the living crap out of me. It really
Doesn't
does.
make any sense.
Makes no sense whatsoever. And if Dan Quinn would have a set of balls and actually just stuck to his guns, we would have actually been more comfortable and more competitive in that whole game. It's the simplest of things, and it's the simplest mistakes like that. It's going to cost you your job. It's true.
And the question is, okay, there is going to be a drop off between Stephon Gilmore and Nashawn Wright, but are you saying that you have no faith in Nashawn Wright? What the hell is he doing on your roster then?
Yeah,
because you know you're talking about guys that are falling. You know, there is always going to be turnover during the season because of injury and all that. We lost Trayvon Diggs. You know, that then brought DeRon Bland up. DeRon Bland set up. You've got Eric Scott. You've got Nashawn Wright. You've got Noah Benigany, who's now a free agent. You know, all of these guys. Are you saying that a 75% Stephon Gilmore is playing zone coverage is better than playing man coverage with one of these 3 guys at 100%? In which case, why are they on the field? And the whole thing about Dan Quinn as well, when he was brought in, the plus about him was that, you know, when he was coaching it, wherever he's been coaching, he would take these young guys, spend an extra 10, 15 minutes with them after practice, working on drills that would improve them so that when it was the next man up, they were better than they were at the start of the season. We're not seeing that. Why are we not seeing that? Now, yes, you can say that all the CBA stuff that's been signed in recent years, probably since Dan Quinn was coaching, you know, has tailed off the amount of time that you can practice, tailed off these extracurricular practices as well. But, you know, and we're not, you know, there are teams that are learning to make the most of this shortened practice time. We're obviously still stuck, you know, we've got all these analytics for game situations, but we don't seem to have analytics to get the best out of practice.
Yep.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Just to kind of go back, I'm just seeing a couple of comments about like some Parsons and stuff like that. Like his
You don't
comment about
trade him.
it depends what's an offer. It really depends. Money talks, draft picks talk, but either way, I think the point I'm trying to make is when we drafted Micah Parsons, he wasn't our first priority. Let's remember
No.
that. It was a cornerback. Cornerback was our first priority. It was Satan or it was the other kid, JC Horn. It was
JC
one.
Horn, yep.
It was one of the two we wanted, right? And Micah Parsons was just by potluck we got him. Let's be honest. The Eagles could have picked him up. Let's be honest.
Yeah, we
Right?
traded down. Yeah.
Yeah, we traded down. All right. But the Eagles did get a wide receiver. They got Devontae Smith. Going before the draft, Micah Parsons is like, yeah, Dallas needs me. They need a linebacker, which is true. For now, he wants to be a defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
And that now weakens the position of the stuff that we actually now need again. Linebacker. I'm sorry, but we drafted you as a linebacker and you want to be paid as a defensive end. I'm sorry, but no.
He was a linebacker in Penn State, Paul.
I know. I might be sounding I'm being an absolute CUNT on this matter.
You're being right. You're being right. I agree with you, mate.
It's like we drafted you to be a linebacker, right? And you're a great linebacker, right? You're off ball. You can run side to side. Like, if you become fully defensive end, it's now going to leave the gaping hole within the middle of that, of the field, essentially, especially when it comes to the run game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my issue with Micah Parsons right now, and it's all about the dough.
Yeah.
Right, and he is right in that matter. Linebackers don't get paid as enough as defensive ends do. But remember why we drafted you, Micah? We wanted you to be a linebacker.
But here's one, though.
Thing is, as well, if Micah Parsons was all pro at linebacker or all world or whatever you want to say, he could still go in and dictate the money for that linebacker position as well.
Exactly.
And and the ability to play 2, 3, 4 positions as well, that just adds to his arsenal and adds to his demands.
He could reset the market, Lorne. He could reset the market based on his accolades. But trying to base it on a defensive end's accolades is a bit because he has the ability to do it, but he's not willing to do it. And it seems to be the same scenario when he's doing his wee podcast saying, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but you don't do it. You didn't do it. That's what annoys me.
The problem here is this is the same as what Paul was saying earlier, and I completely agree with it, with the whole, basically all the extracurricular stuff, all the hot boy stuff, the sunglasses, the podcasts, that's all well and good. And it's the same sort of thing with the direction that players have taken it. Because let's be frank, players have gone down the route of, we want to play and practice less. You want us to play more and have more games to make you more money. Okay, well, we want to practice less and have more money on it. And we want to have more of a share of everything else. And we want to be able to do this and do that. And everyone started doing their own, doing their extracurricular thing. Which to a point, I can get behind. As long as it doesn't distract you from the main goal. Problem is, that seems to be happening. That happened massively, I think, with the whole Hot Boys thing against the Rams. They went in, right in this wave, and were completely flat, completely and utterly pathetic. This is the most pathetic performance since the Rams. This is more, but it's the worst one since, in my opinion, especially for the Dallas defense.
And not to mention,
this
Rich,
whole thing of coming in and you don't want to play football, which is what you're here to do. You are happy to come in and play well enough to get yourself a good deal, be it here, be it elsewhere, to maximize your money, to say, I'm not a linebacker, I'm a defensive end. To maximize what you get. That's what you care about. you don't care that much, seemingly, about making the playoffs. You don't care that much, seemingly, about winning a championship. You don't care that much, seemingly, about winning a Super Bowl. What you care about is taking care of yourself financially, which I can understand. But you need to ask yourself, or the coaches need to be asking the questions. They need to be standing there and saying, okay, guys, this year, I only want people here if they want to play football and you want to win a Super Bowl. If you don't want to do that and you're not willing to do whatever it takes, play where we tell you and not bitch and moan about it and put in maximum effort every snap, just leave. Just go. I'll find someone else who will. You either take the deal we give you for now and go. You want to make money, have the wherewithal to understand that winning a Super Bowl and having that eternal glory will bring you money further down the line and keep bringing you money throughout your entire the rest of your life.
Absolutely,
you will be known
Rich.
as
Facts.
Super Bowls, especially when you are the next Cowboys team to win a Super Bowl after that long. That team will get more than any other Cowboys team to win a Super Bowl afterwards because of the big drought.
Here's one.
I want to see what happens I mean, that's a fair point.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
Yeah,
because there's overshown. There's a
right.
linebacker situation, Paul.
Yep,
I know, but before I move into that, I just want to quickly mention is like Rich mentioned the likes of the Rams. That was against the Rams team that played their second string running back and ran a mock on us. So that's what I've got to say on that. But I agree that game was actually worse than the Rams game. But anyway, but yes, to Tim's point, yeah, that's a really interesting point. But is overshown going to be enough? I don't think so. Is just having Diggs back? I don't think so. I think we still need to add up more, and we need a running back. Yeah,
need more than a running back.
We need more than a running back. Absolutely, we need running back, offensive linebacker. That's the top three positions that we need right now, and potentially another wide receiver, depending on what we are going to do. Potentially with Michael Gallup, really, because that his contract is gonna be like hitting us at some point for a guy that's on the fringes pretty much. Why keep him on board? Even though, he was the most standout guy in that playoff game in terms of our wide receivers, that might bring a bit more value if we were to trade, someone was to trade for him, great. But keeping him on board just to be like there for situational stuff is not enough. He should be our number 2 wide receiver based on how he's getting paid right now, and it's not enough. And I just saw Graham's comment about the 11 players on defense.
It's true.
It's not just Micah. Where was D-Law? D-Law was probably I'm sorry, but from watching the 11, D-Law was probably one of our best players in terms of stopping the run. I think personally, like he was the one that was making the most tackles for losses and stuff like that. The problem was the inside gap, because our linebackers decided to to disengage from their assignment. Like in particular, Damone Clark. When you watch the video of Damone Clark, he had so if you're on the offense, you're on the right hand side. So he would have been hitting that A gap. For some reason, he goes to the other A gap where it's already been fulfilled, and that leaves the doors open for Aaron Jones to get those big long yards. Like we saw that in at least 7 instances in that game, at least 7.
The one thing I would say about that is something that the Shanahan tree has always done, is that it sets up a backside hole so that it makes the linebackers think the play's flowing one way. They go to fill that hole, and then the cut.
It's a lot of misdirection.
And that
regardless, though, Lauren, we should know it's like you should never go away. Like it's the whole Bill Belichick. It's like, do your job. You have your assignment. That is your gap. You hit your gap regardless, just in case. And that's exactly what happened.
To bring it back to earlier on, and I completely agree with you, Lauren. 100%. It's so accurate. And I completely agree with that.
This comment.
They should be. They've lost twice in the playoffs now, in the 3 previous games, to San Francisco. they should know by now what they are going to do. They should be adjusting to it and planning for it and scheming it. They don't do it. Or they seem unable to maybe be more accurate. It's a problem. It's a big, big, big problem.
I mean, the other thing to say as well, you know, to show how successful a Shanahan offense is, Christian McCaffrey was a great player at Carolina, but he has taken a step up since going to that 49ers offense because of because of the game plan there.
100%, Lauren.
You know, and that just goes to show that the Shanahan style of offensive line play is something that should be taken on in this league.
And not to mention as well, they got to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G, and they almost made it with Brock Purdy. Let's not remember that. And they could do that again this year. So it doesn't matter what quarterback they put into this system. They could put in bloody Brandon Whedon of all people and still get to the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
It's true. They're not quarterback reliant.
You've got to look as well that, you know, Houston are playing a similar style of offense, as are Green Bay. Both of their quarterbacks finished with 157.2 quarterback rating last week. Now, Jordan Love was 158.3 until he came back in, because we came within 16 points. He came back in for the last series and threw an incomplete pass, which knocked him down 0.5. But, you know, that just goes to show that, you know, any QB could probably step into the reins of that offense and be successful in it.
I completely agree. And to add to your point, you haven't even got to look at San Francisco. This is the maddening thing. You haven't got to look at another team and see what happened. All you got to do is let's have fun with it. Let's turn the clock back a decade, and I'll ask you the question. What is it about this Cowboys offense? Is it the offensive line, or is it DeMarco Murray?
Offensive line.
Offensive line.
But that was the question. Is it the running back? Does the running back make the line, or does the line make the running back? That was swirling around ridiculously for weeks and weeks and weeks, even over the year.
It should always be the question. It should always be the question. It should always be offensive line. They're the ones that are opening the doors.
We all know everything starts in the trenches, which is why they apparently said they tried 2 years ago to bring it back to the trenches, to sort out the offensive line and the defensive line, with very, very little overall effort, in my opinion.
It takes more than one,
and it takes more than one season to do it. Exactly that, because that's how you did it the first time around, and that's why you went and set the trend in 2014. Then you went and got Zeke in 2016, and lo and behold.
I mean, I was going to say it takes more than one player per draft to make that difference. It needs to be a collection of players to contribute to make that difference. Doesn't matter, maybe 1 year, 2 year. I agree in that, but you can't expect one single player from a drafted linebacker to become a defensive end to change the whole outcome of this defensive line, and you can't expect Tyler Smith to reinvigorate the whole offensive line. That's just not how it works. It needs to be a whole collective.
Yep.
And the offensive line, completely agree from earlier on, offensive line coach needs to change. They've played down this year compared to what they were last year. The change in running back situation has played a part because of that dynamic. And I said it at the start of the season, and I'll say it now at the end of the season, they let Zeke go too early. I understand the reasons that everyone was happy to see him go, understand the money. Sorry, everyone, no. I disagree. They let him go too soon. Exhibit A, 2023 season. They were never, ever, from letting Zeke go, going to use Tony Pollard properly. Because they couldn't.
Tony Pollard is literally an outside run or a screen pass type of running back. That's his best. He's never going to be the hammer to be the inside run. He's not that type of running back.
Nope.
So,
which is what you need.
and that's how he's been, because he's on that franchise tag. We're trying to see what other ways we can use him. But you don't experiment with a player when you already know what his traits are. I'm sorry, you don't. It's like,
you had a year.
there's a reason why we've got Rico
training.
Dowdle in the squad. There's a reason why he's supposed to be the guide for the inside runs. Make them like, it might be a big giveaway, to the defense. Okay, or they're running. They've got Rico Dowdle, and well, he's going to run inside, but.
Sometimes you need that. Sometimes
matter,
you need that, though, Paul.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to just be like, look, we're coming straight at you. We are going to hit you. Get your linebackers in there, and let's see if we can have physical. It's a whole, not just the physicality and the taking the stamina out of them, the mentality as well. But, one of the things we had a comment here about Steele's decline this year was alarming. Yes, I agree in most respects. But what I will say is toward the end of the regular season, it was getting better. You were starting to see him become. He was nowhere near what he was the season before. I will say that.
There was not to throw excuses, mate, but he did have the injury and whatever and that.
Yeah.
Could that been a factor potentially?
Mentally.
Possibly. Same with Pollard and coming off injury, possibly. But when you're in the NFL and you're wanting to win a Super Bowl, there's no time for that. I know it sounds harsh, but it's true. You want your guys back in there, whether you're 100% or not. And let's be honest, and a majority of these players play injured all the time. There's a niggle there. You might have cramp there and there. We had some Packers players dealing with hamstring and still played fantastic. Jair Alexander, of all people, he made the interception on Brandon Cooks. I mean, don't get me wrong, you could call it that. Yeah, that was pass interference, but he still made the play. And that's a guy who was dealing with a hamstring injury.
Yeah, the concerning trend for me is obviously we talked about after the Philadelphia game what the problem was, the initial Philadelphia game, what the problem was with Terrence Steele, that, because he was coming off rehab and all that, he probably hadn't been able to work on lower body strength. He'd been able to do the upper body side of things, but you need a whole body side of things. But what we're seeing is this offensive line has got, they've got lean. Yes, they're stacked muscle wise and all that, but they're quite lean. And you're seeing it on the defensive line as well. Mazi Smith was drafted at 330 pounds to be a 330 pound nose tackle, stuff the line. By the end of the season there, he was probably about the same weight as somebody like Osi Odigizua, who was 297. So he's lost 33 pounds.
Yeah.
And there's something there. Is that, as Brian Broaddus said on Talking Cowboys this week, is that the whole complaint that he was slow out of his stance is he's saying, well, if I lose weight, then I can be faster out of my stance. But then that negates what you're actually drafting him for. You're turning, and again, there's this whole thing that Aidan Durdy on the draft show said, we have seen pass rush skills from Mazi Smith flash it while he was at Michigan. We think we can turn him into a pass rusher. You weren't drafting him to be a pass rusher. You were drafting him to be a stand-up guy. Next, if Neville Gallup, if
nose tackle.
Hankins went down, it was that space eater. Because
Yeah.
Bahana wasn't cutting it, and again, there's a concern there that these guys are losing weight during the season. We got the tour of the star, and they talk about how you've got all the world-class chefs and everything like that. These guys should be maintaining their weight, being 330 pounds. Yeah, they come off the field, they've lost 8 pounds in sweat and everything like that. But within a couple of days, they should be back up at their playing weight.
Yep.
Generally, you
totally
do
agree
find,
with you, Lon, 100%.
You do find, though, if you go and look at it, a lot of teams, the players are losing weight throughout the season. It does happen. It is something that generally does happen.
Yeah, that generally happens. But the movement away from taking these guys, taking them away and utilizing people in an incorrect manner is a problem for this team. They've done it with numerous players on both sides of the ball. It is a big, big problem. Like Lon just said, you didn't draft Mazi Smith to go and rush the passer.
Yeah,
There is a time and a place for everything, especially at the end of the season and in the postseason. You've got to be able to run the ball and you've got to be able to stop the run. It is no surprise to me that of the 4 teams that are left in the NFC playoff picture, outside of Green Bay, who is the worst, the other 3 teams left, 1, 2, and 3. In terms of rushing.
Yeah. But bear in mind
Same.
that Aaron Jones averaged, like, in the last 3 games of the season, he was averaging over 100 yards per game. He was doing it. And in talking of running back, I will say on this question, no for Dallas. That the reason Zamit's put running back / wide receiver is that he's never run a route. He's never tried to catch a ball off a route. He doesn't know how to run a bang 9. You say run a bang, he's not going to know what that means. It has no concept of route concepts. And so he's put running back / tight end, because if he doesn't know how to do that, then he knows how to carry the ball. But the unfortunate thing for him is that he's under 200 pounds, and there's not that many, although the Cowboys have one already. There's not that many running backs that are under 200 pounds in the NFL. It doesn't happen. The Cowboys, that fit doesn't work.
No, and this is the thing, is that they don't need a dual threat running back. Outside of all that, everything you just said, that's fine. They don't need a dual threat running back. They've already got it.
The only thing I think Zamet could be good for. The only thing I think Zamet could be good for the Cowboys is because you've seen a decline in Turpin this year as a punt returner. That would be what I think he could fit as for Dallas.
And that's realistic where he should start anyway, because
special teams.
If he's coming in special teams, he's got to earn it, same as everyone else. He's going to go on punt return, hopefully earn a spot. Brilliant. And I would love, just as much as Mike, just as much as Neil, being a Welshman, to see Reece Zamet in a Cowboys uniform. I'd absolutely love it. I'd love it. I'd love to have his NFL jersey alongside my Wales jersey. I'd absolutely love it. And I'd love him to be an impact player every team. But the fact of the matter is, right now, we don't need a Louis Reece Zamet. We don't need him. What we need is big, beefy linemen on both sides and a strong runner that can fall forward between the tackles. That's what you need, because then you can allow Pollard to go do what he wants to do. If you want to let Pollard go, okay, we can have a conversation. Otherwise, no.
This one,
there's no point.
What you've got to remember as well, the international player pathway has been expanded this year. Every single team has to have one. Now there's a release just now with the first 16 players that have signed up.
Yep.
Mostly there's 4 players from Ireland, all kicker and punter. Mm-hmm. There's 3 from England. 2 of them are offensive linemen. 1 is a kicker punter. You've got a wide receiver from Nigeria via Scotland.
Yeah.
You've got LRZ. You've got a whole of the Nigerians as well, which are coming through going through on the OC Umanora school that he set up over there and all that.
Funny how you see that happening a lot now.
Other than kicker and punters, they're probably not going to feature at all this year. The whole point of this IPP is that you get them in the training camp situation. You give them 2 years, build them up, and then see what you've got. It hasn't worked for a lot of people. FAO
Cowboys have just had one.
FAO Bada is probably the only guy that you could say it's worked on.
Did something,
and as much as we like Isaac Alarcon, at the moment, all I'm seeing is him doing training videos in Dallas. He's still working out in Dallas. He's living in Dallas, but he's not been picked up. He's not been picked up by anybody.
But here's one about the Mazzy and Schoonmaker pick. Still, I know Mazzy in some respects doesn't look like he made much of an impact. You have to give that time. The Schoonmaker pick is probably the one I have the most problem with, and it's probably the one I have the most problem with. even going back to
When he was
Taco
drafted.
Charlton, people were confused about the
Yep.
Taco Charlton pick.
Yep.
Well, this one makes even less sense than that.
Because we've got Ferguson and Hendershot, who were actually phenomenal the last year,
Ferguson.
and they've picked up the pace this year. Well, in particular, Jake Ferguson, he's solidified himself as tight end number 1. So I don't know why we spend a second-round draft pick on a tight end where we could use that on building up another offensive lineman in that second round, or get another linebacker. Like, who's the guy that oh god, what's his name? Kansas drafted in the second round, the linebacker. I can't mind his name, but there was so many good linebackers, and he was playing for Cincinnati. You know the one I'm talking about, the linebacker from Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Who got drafted.
I'm trying to think. Somebody will remember.
But either way, there was a lot of good linebackers in that second round there for the taking. We could have got one of those guys.
Or even, you say that, but even there was like
Price.
They were, yeah. Was it?
Was it Price?
No.
There's
right. That's it. I'm gonna have to check now because you got me. It's bugging me. But like you say that there was like other tight ends. Ivan Pace. Not bad little linebacker. Dual role sort of guy. But it's not just that. Paul. There was, and we spoke about them during the draft period, which is now coming up for our show. We spoke about certain inside offensive linemen, guards, and the such like, and they were there, they were available, and we just drifted right past them and went down the pecking order. And I know there was big question marks about the tight end position coming into this year, but I just think that this again is just another example of the second round pick failures for Dallas, but it didn't make any sense. Mazzi, on the other hand, I don't know if you guys agree with this. I just think for his first year in what he had to do, you've seen the physicality and the strength and what he's able to produce, but it's just lacking technique. And I think that's just from being so overly powerful in Michigan, playing Big Ten football that way. He never need to learn technique. Yeah. So I think next year, with another season of learning with the coaching staff, you'll see technique and you'll see a different Mazzy Smith coming up.
I totally agree with you, Mike, because I think defensive tackle, especially if you're being utilized as one specific skill set and to kind of adapt, it's going to be a lot harder than most positions. Whereas defensive end, you may expect to be off ball. They do that in college, but when it comes to the more inside of that defensive line, they have them set in their own ways, keep them to their strengths, and that's it. That's why you always see a lot of gaps in college football, high scorers, because there is a lot of holes in players' games because
they're just trying to forklift.
Yeah. So with the Mazzy Smith pick, I still agree with it. We knew he's not going to be a day one guy. We knew that. But it was good to know that we did draft someone that could actually help potentially fix this in the long run.
In the long run, yeah.
That's the key here, is to have Smith there as the long run goal, is to really fix that. And I totally agree. Give Mazzy Smith year 2, we will expect more from him. I would say
year 3, then will be.
And he's a proper one tech. And everyone knows
fully.
And everyone knows about my disappointment with Neville Gallimore. I had big high expectations for him. But when you've got a guy like Osa Digizua playing well ahead of him, what more can you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole thing. I think, as said there, the whole thing about, if you remember going into the draft, half of the mock drafts had us taking Dalton Kincaid, had us taking Sam Laporta, whoever. We were in the market for a tight end. Schoonmaker, initially he'd graded out as a 4th rounder and built up steam as he went through the whole off-season process. I think the whole fact that he turned up to camp injured, the plantar fasciitis and all that sort of stuff, and didn't get activated until a week before the end of training camp. All that sort
That
of stuff.
doesn't help.
It's similar to the Jalen Tolbert pick the year before, and we're seeing stuff from Jalen Tolbert. I expect to see an improvement next year with Schoonmaker. At the same time, Hendershot spent half the time on IR this season. Sean McKeon spent time on IR. We weren't expecting to keep Sean McKeon as well, but you still run a lot of 2 and 3 tight end sets. We at points we ran a 3 tight end set with Chuma Edoga in there. Admittedly, he never reported the whole, this whole thing about reporting and all that. He did go to the referee. The referee never announced it to anybody, and we ran play and all this sort of stuff. So don't start getting me on the whole Lions thing again. But I think there was a plan there. It just hasn't. As we always say, the draft is an absolute lottery, and this year at the moment it looks like we've failed on on those picks across the board. But 2-3 years down the line, this might be, we might see something from this group, and you might be saying, "No, but this is one of the world-beating drafts that we've ever had." It doesn't look like it at the moment, but don't just focus on 1 year. Especially when you're saying that Muzzy Smith was only ever drafted to be a backup to begin with.
The stats are always going to look squiffy with him.
Yeah. And it's not a position. It's not a position where you excel for stats.
Yeah, definitely. It's a selfless position in that way.
People need to give it time. Need to remember. If you remember one thing, there's the one thing I always remember is everyone was hot on the heels of Tank on his first season until he helped you win the game against the Lions in the postseason. He didn't do anything in the regular season worth shouting about. But come the postseason, got his first sack, and it helped win you a playoff game. Give it time. You can't judge a draft on 1 year. You just can't.
Yeah. But there we have it, guys. A fan rant show. We hope you've managed to vent and get some off. It's not over. We're still continuing on. We will be back next week. Now, we won't be back on Tuesday, though there will be Tuesday shows going forward. We just got to flip some things over and set some things into place. But next Thursday, we will be back where we get to talk all about the draft, guys, draft prospects and roster spots. But next week, we'll start off, first of all, with looking at positions of need, and then from there, we can start talking to prospects. So get your thinking caps on for the next week, where you can think about where the Cowboys need players the most. And then going on from there, we'll be back then after that, Tuesdays and Thursdays, talking all about the draft. Let's have a look. Ooh, what just happened there? Oh, there we go. It was my computer screen. I do apologize. Go on, Paul. Hit me with it, mate.
Yes, guys, if you're planning on going to a Dallas Cowboys game next year, be sure to go and check out cowboysexperience.com for game tickets, stadium tours, meet and greets, and much, much more.
That's right. And there will be some news as well after the Super Bowl about something happening somewhere, sometime with us. So keep an eye on that. Yes. So, so keep an eye on that. We just hope you managed to vent. That's the main thing. Get the big exhale out. Get things set into motion. And now we get to talk about making the Dallas Cowboys roster better through the NFL draft, where they get stronger, of course. Yeah, and we'll go through that. We'll do free agency. We'll do some mock drafts. We'll do it all. It's all coming up over the next few weeks, a lot sooner than we wanted to. But yes, of course, that means we are over, which means stay safe over the weekend. We'll see you next week. I have the first word of the show, but these guys all have the last word. You've been the MVPs of the show, as always, and you've been the MVPs throughout the whole season. That's what I'm going to say. So let these guys have the last word, and we get out of here. Stay safe, folks.
Right, guys, have a great week. Try and put this behind us. Start building for next year. Okay, move on, and we start fresh on Monday.
Dallas forever, Philly for never.
I think I stole my line. Yeah, Screw the Eagles. Ha!